Back again for the Seth Rosczewski After Hour show. Today I am not sitting down with a Rockland representative, but today I'm sitting down with someone that is running for the Norfolk Plymouth District Senator seat, state senator seat actually. I'm sitting here with Alex Mendez. Alex, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the homemade studio.
I like it. It's a great setup, better than most professional ones. I mean, it is professional. That's sick.
Hey, when you're running at home studio, you can certainly control all of the environment. So I get the lighting just the way I want, and I can set up early if I need to.
And the temperature's nice too.
Exactly, yes. Summertime, it is a bit challenging. But you ran in 16, 18, and 20 against the current sitting state senator, John F. Keenan, who I had on the program about a year ago, almost a year ago this month.
Yeah.
And you are a lawyer in Quincy, and you graduated from Suffolk University, the same law school actually that State Senator Keenan graduated from. What is keeping you in the race, and why do you keep coming back?
Commitment and passion. I mean, things haven't changed. They've only been getting worse since 2016. And there's a quote that I got from Martin Luther King. He was quoting someone else. I forget who it was, but it was a poet. But he said, "Truth crushed to earth will rise again," meaning that if it's true and it gets defeated, the truth comes back. So you can't get rid of me, because the way I have my passions and everything, we still need to change education, infrastructure, housing, all these problems, even just the value of a dollar. You know what I mean? Like, all the big problems, they haven't gone away, and those have been things I've been committed to for a while. So even though I lost an election. I didn't lose the faith in the process, you know? And he's been on one track of everything's fine, and just that old political establishment thing of running just as a Democrat type thing, just in title only. And what happens is he hasn't changed, but the world has changed. So why are we stuck in the past? When I'm trying to bring a better future, he's trying to keep us in the past and ignore the reality of today, you know? So actually I'm more ambitious now, because the political scene has changed so much over the past 10 years, and the demographics have changed. Like, all the people that would have voted for him are those 1960s, 1970s, 1980s Democrats. But they're all dying now, and they're all in different worlds than we live in right now. The average voter for him, I would say, is probably like 65 years old, and then there might be some younger people that just vote for him out of habit because he is a Democrat. But those are precisely the people I'm trying to reach, the new generation of people who are essentially politically homeless, who feel that as the government can be a tool for good and do better. So even though I lost in 2016, 2018, 2020, I knew back then that it would be a long ride to do it. So it was just kind of, I knew I was going to lose, but I wanted to at least establish myself that I was truly committed to this. So I was like, this is what we're doing, win or lose, let's do it, learn all the ins and outs, all the problems, like in the political campaigning stuff. And I knew I was going to lose, but you got to get those losses under your belt from learning from experience. The same way you do all this stuff, you learn the hard way. So I feel real confident now that I'm able to connect, especially with this stuff, which is fantastic. So thank you. And just, it's easier to reach people. The message is connecting a lot with people. I've been meeting people in Quincy, firefighters, city workers, police officers, everyone. And I'll just be in the Stop and Shop minding my business, and they're like, I saw your stuff, it's awesome, you got my vote, I'm going to put a sign on my lawn, let me know. I'm like, it's working, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's connecting. So even though you lose, you got to get, take the 10 count and get back up, you know?
Sure.
So that's where we're at. So that's what's exciting, is that I'm finally at the position where I want to be, after getting all, like, just kind of digging myself out of that hole. And right now it's in an awesome position. So that's what's sick.
Why state senator? Most people usually start in a school committee, select board member, mayor. You're running for the state senator position, Norfolk and Plymouth. Why start there? And what are your future political aspirations?
2 reasons. future political aspirations, I can honestly say I'm happy at state senator level. The reason not the school council and all that is growing up in the world and kind of seeing how it was. There are lots of hacks in local politics, and they all start at school committee, and then they say, what's your political aspiration? That exact question. And they lie to you, but automatically they say, oh, I have no other further aspirations. But you're like, I know that you're only doing this to get your foot in the door, to start pandering to people, to get to the next level, and kind of climb the ladder, which is all bullshit. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's a hack way of looking at it. The way that I perceive the state Senate, that's an actual level where you can affect real change. They have a budget of like $63 billion, sometimes more, sometimes less. And Massachusetts, in terms of GDP and all the demographics, we're essentially one of the largest economies in the world. You know what I mean? Which is
probably larger than some small countries.
Yeah, like we're just below Taiwan. You know what I mean? Like, so like we are at an extraordinary level to actually not just be leaders in the United States, but leaders in the world. And sometimes we are, in terms of, we have the Longwood Medical Center, we have Kendall Square, which is the biggest area of research in the country besides Silicon Valley. And we can actually do stuff here in Massachusetts that can be an example for the world. And I don't want to be a hack. Like, that's such a hacky thing to do, of saying, oh, I'm going to do school committee, and then I'm going to be a city councilor, and then just wait, because those people, they want political power, but they don't know what to do with it. Right. I know what I want to do and how to do it. That's why I got a couple master's degree, undergraduate, and degrees are bullshit. They're just a metric of what you can kind of, just showing that I was committed to it. But I was inspired by,
I agree with just hard work. Honestly, I have finished my associate's degree, and I'm awaiting to receive my diploma.
Hell yeah.
But before I even got my associate's degree, I built a small media business, which ran. I built up a podcast with nearly 30,000 subscribers. I'm on my second podcast I'm working on, director at a television studio. So I agree that degrees sort of can be somewhat pointless.
Yeah.
But I also want my medical doctors and my lawyers to have the knowledge. I want them to know the word and to do it,
To be accredited. One of the inspirations, are you from Massachusetts?
Yes,
yeah.
From Rockland.
Yeah, exactly. One of the big inspirations was the scene in Good Will Hunting. You know what I mean?
I've never seen it.
You've never seen Good Will Hunting?
No, I have not. I'm not a big movie guy. You know, my family was more like outdoors, get outside. If I was sitting down watching TV, they were like, get out now. They don't want me there.
No, and that's one of the relevance of bringing that up, though, is in Good Will Hunting, the story is about this Southie kid who was just like a degenerate, but he was committed mentally, and he would just read. Sure. And there's a really cool, important scene in the movie, and you're like, fucking, that's my dude. Is he comes up and he starts, like, his friend starts talking to a girl, and then they're at a Harvard bar, and they're a bunch of Southie degenerates. This Harvard guy, he's dressed all pompous, whatever. They do a good job in terms of visuals, you know? Sure. And he comes over and he starts making his friend feel like shit. But then this dude, Matt Damon's character, comes over, and he's actually smarter than the other dude, and they start going back and forth, and he makes the smart dude feel like shit, and he's just like, not feel like shit, but he puts him in his place. He's like, sure. Oh, you think you're smart?
He checks him.
Exactly. And then he pushes back, and the other guy, but then the Harvard dude says, yeah, but the difference is I'll have a degree, and you'll be serving my kids French fries. So I took both of those spectrums in what I did, of being independently curious and researching and reading all the time, like always reading, like whether poetry, history, just politics.
I'm so impressed by general knowledge. That to me is something that I tell some of the kids that work at the Rockland High School, work at WRPS, is I tell them, general knowledge will get you further in most positions than extreme knowledge on one subject. Yeah,
so that was it. So I was independently curious and just wanted to learn as much as I can about the world and how to make it a better place, you know? So I did that independently, but at the same time, the thing about the degrees stuck in my mind. Sure. I was like, you need some sort of accreditation, legitimacy. So that's why I earned 4 college degrees and went to law school and did all that stuff, because Barney Frank, who was he was a congressman, and he was actually real cool. He was like one of the first openly gay congressmen. He was, at the time, like in the early 90s, he was a real, a profound advocate for gay rights, human rights, everything. He was a great dude. But he joked because before he was a congressman, he was maybe in the state house, I forget what position it was before, and he gave an example. He said, before I had my law degree, everyone would say, "Oh, you're not a lawyer. What do you know? What do you know?" And he goes, "I never changed, but I got my law degree." And then people would say, "Are you a lawyer?" He says, "Yes." And then they just accepted what he said automatically. So there are levels of accreditation, of adding legitimacy. So I'm in the spectrum of both. I'm one of the most degenerate people you've ever met, of just drinking and reading all the time. I did that for about 15 years, and just sitting, reading everything you could, consuming all the knowledge. And then at the same time, I was reading like 4 books every 3 months just for degrees, you know?
Yeah.
So getting as many degrees as you can, just as a fun thing. So a foot in both worlds of being a regular person who doesn't respect degrees on their face, but then also being someone to have all the accreditation to say, education is bullshit in some ways, you know? And I think that means a lot, especially now with looking at the way we view college, because the way it was 20 years ago is completely different. You're like, you can, like exactly what you did here, you don't need degrees to do it. You just need ambition and know-how and learning and curiosity. And I think that's a big element of self-learning, that we need to kind of pair up self-learning and motivation with accreditation. So I think especially one of my platforms is 2 parts of it, or 3 parts are the free trade school, free UMass, and free medical school.
How will those be funded?
It's taxes. We spend billions of dollars. We have taxes.
So you're talking about cutting taxes to move money elsewhere, or increasing taxes?
Keeping taxes the same. I mean, if we can lower taxes when we can do it, especially for working families. So it would be, if we can lower taxes for working families, increase for high-profit corporations, or at least cutting off their loopholes of where they can skip paying money. So we would be paying for those things. Right now we spend over $1 billion on funding state schools, education, and then that gets supplemented by kids having to take out debt. So it's a kind of mix. If we can eliminate the debt for the students while increasing our public spending and putting the money where it should go. I mean, if someone's paying taxes and they have a 16, 20-year-old kid, however age, their taxes should be going to that kid's education from kindergarten all the way up until they get a degree, you know? Just because we want to create more productive members of society. And not productive as being machines, but people to be able to pursue their passions and not be limited by the cost.
You're looking to encourage education.
100%, because a person isn't completely fulfilled until they're educated. And I'm not saying, oh, get degrees in philosophy and stuff, but if you're a laborer, you want to be more than just a dude who's moving bags and stuff. You want to be the guy in the machine, making the calls, doing the big stuff. So we want to educate people as much as they can to fulfill their dreams and have any aspiration, like fulfill any aspirations and ambitions. So if we can do that as a state, which we can, let's do it. Like, why do we have cost barriers for public education, for UMass, state school, all that stuff? We want to.
What's the rough cost on this? Do you know? Anything? Any ideas?
We could easily allocate $500 million a year for the trade school, which would be an enormous amount. So we could even get it done for $250 million a year and have one of the best free trade schools in the entire country, in the entire world. So 250, easy. We have a $62 billion budget. We can take that. We can work it out, you know? And then for the UMass and the UMass medical school, we can find the money. We can, like I said, I keep repeating the number, $63 billion budget. We can get it done. It just takes vision and ambition and prioritizing education. And if we're to prioritize anything, it's health and education. You know what I mean? Because we want to have a healthy, safe society. And when we're taken care of medically, we're physically safer. When we have education, crime rates go down, productivity goes up, which increases our economy, and we have in the long run, we'll have more productive members of society and less drains on society. If we have educated people who can get jobs, take care of themselves, take care of their families, welfare spending will go down, right? So let's put the money as a long-term investment to have a better society, more productive society, increase our economy, increase quality of life, and do all the good stuff. Like, that's what's so exciting about all this. Like, we can do it. It's just that we're stuck in an old-time mentality of, like, 25-year-old politics of living in completely different worlds. And that's why I'm running against Keenan, because he's stuck in that old world.
To achieve this, you will need a level of bipartisanship. You are running as an independent, right?
Yeah.
Yes. You are running as an independent. You'll be working with Republican, Democrats, and the public alike. How do you plan on using your bipartisanship? And what's your view on bipartisanship?
Well, technically it would be tripartisan,
yes.
right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, because now you're introducing
the
a third,
Republican Party in Massachusetts on the state level is effectually ineffective. They represent maybe 10-15% of legislators.
Sure.
Legislators.
I think neighboring towns like Weymouth and whatever district that is, is like a Republican district.
There might be one or two, Massachusetts actually is almost a Republican state. We have Republican governors all the time. When people are allowed to vote and it's not gerrymandered as it is in Massachusetts, the Republican voice is actually raised up. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm saying Massachusetts is always considered a blue state, and because all of our legislatures are blue states, because it's essentially gerrymandered in a way that, and not gerrymandered, and if you run as not Democrat, you're going to lose. But if you run as a Democrat and do that hack thing of starting school committee, then raising up and saying, I'm the Democrat, the Democrats never are opposed. The only time there's a competition, an election, and a primary is when someone leaves their seat to move to the next step in the ladder. If you can look in the history of everything, no one ever challenges incumbents, especially in party, because they want to maintain the status quo. They just want to make sure that they're not shaking the water, so they'll work for that person, and then when they leave, they'll jump in. But to get it done, it takes vision and ambition. And if there's a state legislator that says that we shouldn't prioritize health and education in Massachusetts, oh boy, I would get on a microphone and challenge that person openly, like as we're doing now. I'd sit them in a chair right there. I'd sit right here and say,
What are your views on the health industry in Massachusetts right now? The health industry, and you can even go into elder care. I know that's one of your running points.
Yeah.
What's your view on the medical industry?
It's overflated, it's inflated, and it's ballooning in cost. Lots of our money goes to profits and middlemen and waste it's inefficient in lots of ways. Whereas we can reduce the inefficiencies. One of my public platforms is the free community healthcare clinics, which we can easily fund with $2 billion a year out of the $30 billion a year we spend on healthcare. We can put it directly to use to increase efficiency, provide better care, and make a healthier population. So right now, as things are, it's so many middlemen, insurance, this and that, and same thing as student loans and costs for education. We have medical insurance, all this BS that is inhibiting our ability to deliver better services. So I think we can deliver better services at a lower cost, increase efficiency, and have better health outcomes for the short term and long term. So there's lots of good in Massachusetts. We spend lots of money on research. My wife is a medical researcher, studying autism at Boston Children's Medical. She does a wonderful job. She's surrounded by lots of wonderful people who are truly committed to improving health, finding cures for everything. But then when it comes to delivery, we say that we have the mass health and free healthcare, but there's so much BS in there where we're end up subsidizing private healthcare, and the costs just go to billion-dollar profits of all the insurance companies. And it's not just happening in Massachusetts; it's happening countrywide, And what we're experiencing in the United States and in Massachusetts is far different than they have in European countries, where they have more of a socialized, publicly funded medical system. Of course, there are inefficiencies there, but inefficiencies in any system is distinct for that. It's a bureaucratic thing, So what we want to do is eliminate the bureaucracy and get rid of inefficiencies, whether it's a private system or a public system. Eliminate all the bullshit and just make better systems. private isn't the best, public isn't the best, but there's definitely a fun way, a fun, creative way we can kind of get in the middle and deliver better services.
Certainly. What about elder care?
Elder care, that's one of the big things. I am an estate planning attorney. I work in guardianships, conservatorships. I have about a decade under my belt of helping people apply for long-term care in Massachusetts. That's when you essentially nursing homes. And that system has its goods and bads, but it costs tens of thousands of dollars a month.
It's insane.
To take care of an
It's
elder
ridiculous.
person. And it's insulting because you see the money, you say, okay, we'll give you 15 grand a month, but then the money doesn't go to the cleaning, it doesn't go to the nurses, it doesn't go to the medical staff, it doesn't go to care. They get essentially kind of crappy food, you know? And you're like, where does the money go? It goes into the inflated bureaucracy of bullshit. And that's the biggest problem. So I think that we can streamline that process with publicly funded elder care services. Another thing we do for $2 billion a year, we already spend billions on it a year subsidizing the private system. Whereas if we have an efficient public system, then we can lower the cost and just say, you've been a taxpayer all your life. Here's a roof and food. Just don't worry about it. We're a good, responsible society. We take care of our young. We take care of our elders. So that's the main goal of doing it. And what happens when we introduce the competition of a public system that's operating at no cost, that will allow the private companies who have a monopoly of charging 15 grand a month, they have to start competing if they want to stay profitable in business. So they're going to start lowering their costs, delivering better services, becoming more efficient. Whereas right now there's essentially a monopoly of elder care, so they can control the prices, and they always go up, you know? So once we introduce a awesome public system that can handle our elders, take great care of them, and then we'll be able to introduce the competition there, and then that will allow private companies to actually have to compete. So whether you choose private or public, you're still going to be getting an awesome service at a more accurate rate. So that's essentially the long-term goal.
What hiccups will you run into? I'm assuming that you'll need approval from the governor's office. You'll need approval from the senator's office. What kind of hiccups are you anticipating?
Oh, there are going to be tons of hiccups. Like, this is, everything I'm saying isn't going to be done overnight.
Sure.
It's going to take years at best. Like, we can start getting the funding going. Like, we can get funding. I can work with people. I can bully people. I can find allies and advocates and work to get funding to start getting these programs started. And that comes from the budget. So the budget is the most important tool because money rules everything, you know? How do we get the money to fund these programs? So once we get that, we can start going. But of course, there's always going to be hiccups. But I think we need legislators with vision to help make the world a better place. And if they're saying they're a legislator, that should ultimately be their goal, you know? So I want to work with anyone and anyone anyhow to make a better world, as dumb as that sounds, but that's the reality. Sure. And if anyone is against making the world a better world, get the hell out of here. Let's get them out, you know? And of course, there's going to be disagreements on how things should get done, you know? And that's a part of the politics of it. That's where the politics comes in. But right now, what we're lacking in Massachusetts is a long-term vision for a better future, not of where are we going to be during next election
Does
cycle.
that come with term limits? And what are your thoughts on term limits for or seat limits, time limits in the state senator seat?
That is, I'm essentially not against term limits. I understand their purpose, and it's to get people who are career politicians who just kind of run the system and kind of stay in there. What we need is more active legislators and more people like myself who are willing to challenge the system and just say, I don't care what party you are, I don't care what it is, we're running on ideas. Who has the better ideas, who has the better vision? And then we need more competitive elections, but we also need a more educated electorate. Like, one thing is that I think we need to have public debates between, like,
I agree.
Instead of compelling people and putting term limits, that is one way to do it. I suggest that we have mandated public debates so that if your name is on the ballot, you have to debate your opponent at least 3 or 4 hours and put them down so there's no room for bullshit. So you get to see what they believe, how they believe it, because anyone could say any idea, but you just say, what do you mean by that? And then work with them, because you might realize that a lot of our legislators, elected officials, are kind of numbskulls, airheads, who just kind of rose up to the top by starting at the school committee level, and everyone says, oh, he's a nice guy, but you're like, he's a nice guy, but what's he bringing to the table? What are his ideas? What's his vision? And I don't see people having vision, especially in Massachusetts, which is a hindrance when we have all this money that we could be doing awesome stuff with. So instead of term limits, I would suggest mandated debates, and then what would happen is that kind of removes money out of the equation, because once we have a database of all the public debates, people, when they go to the election booth, they just know one name, and then after that, it kind of fizzles on who they know, what they know. Whereas if we have the mandated public debates, people will be able to go on YouTube or whatever database those debates are cataloged on. They'd say, I'll sit down for a day and just watch these two idiots bicker, and I'll find out which one I like, instead of voting by party. So that will eliminate the party monopoly that we have in Massachusetts. You're saying, oh, he's a Democrat, I'm going to vote for Democrats. You're saying, I want to vote for the most qualified candidate, and those debates will be able to allow people to find who's the best candidate. So mandated public debates would help the electorate, it would help the competition, and help get better ideas, and we would have much better political dialogue. We have more public engagement, and it would inspire more people to be involved. Whereas now people don't care about local politics. In Massachusetts, I mean in Quincy, where I'm from, we had a local election for city councilors. Of the population of, let's say, 100, 120,000 people in Massachusetts, only 10,000 people showed up to vote, which is insulting. Like, we say we're a democracy, on 4th of July we're going to celebrate America and everything, democracy, freedom to elect. But the reality is the public isn't involved and they don't care. We need to get the public involved, and I think the mandated debates will just make it easier for them to say, I want to educate myself on who I'm voting for, and it gives a level platform that eliminates money, because people can spend money and just send out more flyers than me. For example, the guy I'm going against, Keenan, he has a budget of, a political war chest of, last time I checked, it was $20,000. He's probably fundraising to make it even more. And I don't have any money. Like, that's the reality of it. Everything I do is essentially self-funded. I get small donations here and there. But money shouldn't be the issue in elections. It should be ideas. So the way we level the playing field is by forcing the candidates to sit down and talk for 4 hours. Yeah. Not at one time, but an hour and an hour and a half, an hour and a half, and an hour and a half. And then that way the public will get an unfiltered example of who they're voting for, what those candidates stand for, and you could see their demeanor better, instead of just sending out flyers with a smiley face saying, I'm better than the other guy, I'll make the world a better place, because that's bullshit, because, or it might not be bullshit. By putting them together, we force the candidates to be more competitive, more challenging, provide better vision, and then you can see what they say then, and then come next time when they get elected, they say, you're going to do A, B, C. You've been there for 15 years. Keenan's been there for 15 years. He's never said anything, The reality is he's never said anything, and I can't wait to sit down with him and talk about all this short-sightedness of his political campaigns and the inability to him to affect meaningful change over 15 years, and my vision to actually affect meaningful change over however long I'd be in office. And I don't have political aspirations. I love my city, Quincy, the district naturally, and Massachusetts, I think, is one of the best states in the union. And I want us to be the golden example for the world of what a good society is, with low crime rates, better health outcomes, better education. And we can do that. And though I want to be held responsible for those ideas every day,
Have you only lived in Quincy?
Only lived in Quincy. Every time I try to leave,
Yeah.
get pulled back.
So my follow-up question is that your district, if you were to win the election, is going to be Braintree, Quincy, Holbrook, Hanover, Abington, Rockland. I believe that's all of them. Yes. Braintree, Quincy, Abington, Holbrook, Hanover, Rockland. You have two major cities, Braintree and Quincy, in there, and then you have 4 suburban towns. What are the issues that are what are the issues for the smaller towns that you're looking to work on, and then what are some of the issues for the larger towns? I'd really like to hear about the smaller towns first.
Yeah. Okay. So demographically and geographically, is Quincy's much closer to Boston, and that's become so much of a more enticing place for younger professionals to find an alternative of living in the city and living somewhere down and going up. But you want to start with the smaller towns.
Yes.
One of the biggest problems we have with suburbs and the way that we designed our cities is that the low populations, for example, Holbrook and Rockland, they have populations ranging between 10, 15, and 20,000 people.
I think Rockland's at 18,000.
Yeah, it's a relatively low population. There are a lot that whole swath from like Weymouth all the way across is about 20,000 on average population. The problem with that is that those towns are essentially in the red, and they rely on state funding for education, for police, for fire, not state education, state funding.
Sure.
So without state funding, those cities will not be able to sustain themselves. So that's why I want to focus urban development in places like Quincy to increase the population density so that they can fund themselves.
So are you interested in grant writing, having a team of grant writers with you?
Explain that.
I think Keenan just unlocked a $700,000 grant awarded to Rockland, or awarded to his district that would be split up between the 6 towns or six cities and towns.
Are you talking about that most recent Instagram post?
I have the printout. I can read it.
He says that he's bringing $750,000 to the local communities to improve life, whatever. $750,000 in the big scheme is nothing. That's essentially 6 public servants' salaries for a year. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You break it down, they average about $100,000, $80,000, a little bit more. So it's essentially nothing that's going to bring meaningful change. And to dissect it, I'll go step by step. 750 sounds awesome. What are we doing? We're renovating a historic town center. A little bit of money to go for roads and whatever. Not going to change anyone's life. We go Holbrook Council on Aging. They received money to purchase a new van. Not going to change anyone's life. He's excited about things like a new van and giving you a trickle of money for a new van. I want to help elder care by completely revamping it so that they have the funding and we're not celebrating getting a new van. That should just be established that we have a $62 billion budget and we're making the world a better place with a well-funded elder care program. And then the next one is Abington Publication. Abington Public Library received funding to purchase new furniture. That's not changing anything. You know what I mean? So why are we celebrating purchasing new furniture? Rockland Public Schools, they're going to get a little bit of money to renovate some space. I want to reform public education so that we have just big, large-scale vision for change. We should be embarrassed. I would be embarrassed if I put this out. You know what I mean? Sure. It's such small thinking of, that they're going to create a new room for people to Google job applications for Rockland Public Schools. That's not it. I want to create a free UMass system and a free trade school so that people have the ability to improve their lives. It's not a small room. Big institutions that create pathways to success, not a room with some computers in it. That's small thinking. I think big. He thinks small and nothing ever changes. I want to think big to help change things for the better.
So what are some of the needs of the 2 cities that are within the district, Quincy, Braintree?
Like, it's always going to be public education and public funding of things, of roads, city maintenance, making sure everything's running on track, of firefighters, police, and all that, because those end up becoming enormous costs. Not in a bad way, but just the reality of you want to pay police officers and firefighters well. You want to make sure that they have good benefits. And actually in Quincy specifically, and teachers, you want to make sure that they're always well paid. Some public teachers might have a disagree on this, but in the scope of things, Quincy does an awesome job in paying its public servants. They take care of them very well as compared to if you move further out west, like past Framingham and that. I used to be a union police officer, lawyer representing the police unions. And I would see some of the salaries that some of those police officers make. I'm like, 50 grand a year. Jesus, like that's a tough thing to live on, you know, whereas in Quincy they get maybe like 80, 90,000 base, and then they can do overtime and do very well. But funding of the public servants is a priority, especially as the population grows and more services need to be delivered. So that comes from the city revenues and needs to be subsidized by the state revenues.
Sure. And I want to hear about your rent-free small business plan.
Oh, that's a fun one. Right now, one of the biggest problems I have in urban development and the way the country's going is corporate slop.
Sure.
You're familiar with this corporate slop?
I've heard the term.
Yeah, it's pretty much like the Chipotle, Cava, all these Tate, all these businesses that are owned by private equity firms. And what happens is they'll build the big buildings which is great. They're called 5/1s. A 5/1 is the biggest you could build a building before you start having to pay extra money. Those are essentially what we see built all over. And we're building those in isolation, which is a problem because you'll just have a big, ugly gray block by a highway. And then at the bottom, there'll be either parking or they'll put in stores. And what happens is with those stores is that who comes in, people who can afford the $10,000 a month rent, which are the Chipotles and all these businesses, the corporate slop. And what happens in those systems is that we're eliminating and removing, not purposely, but just by action of the reality of it, is that mom and pop shops are completely disappearing and they can't afford to rent the lower buildings and all that stuff. So what I want to do is introduce a program that offers the big building owners where they have commercial space at the bottom, offer them an incentive of saying, you can take 40 grand right off your taxes that you're going to be paying, 40 grand right off if we allocate some space to a local independent business. So then that way, at the bottom of it, it won't just be corporate private equity slop. We'll be able to have smaller businesses who don't have to worry about rent, of saying they're essentially under market rent values or essentially free would be the goal to get more small businesses in. And that helps small businesses. It helps enrich our communities with a diverse selection of restaurants, gyms,
Whatever.
Beauty boutiques,
Yeah.
everything, artists, studios, anything where we create a more diverse, dynamic, awesome culture below those 5/1s, and we get small businesses in, and that allows people the whole follow your dreams things that I like in education, but it's also like, I want to have a small business. It gets them into our cities and they can sustain themselves. And what's great is if we build a concentration of the 5/1s, we end up building cities, which would be perfect for Quincy. Right now, they built a series of developments in Quincy, right next to Quincy Center, for housing, a medical facility, a big parking lot, and a parking garage. But it would be awesome if we can get local businesses in there. And we say, how do we get local businesses in there? The building owners are going to say, we want so much in rent, small business can't afford it. But if we say we have this new awesome program where you can write $40,000 off in taxes if you allow a small business, just a small, like 200 square feet or something, just a small business, and then we get the small businesses in there, and then we start creating a rich, diverse environment. Like if you go to areas like Somerville, parts of Cambridge, where when you walk down the streets are lined with cool businesses, and you're like, that's what makes a cool city. Whereas if you walk down the street and it's just a big glass empty building of just at the bottom it's just Chipotle, Cava, an Orange Theory, and you're like, this isn't for normal people. And all the money, and what's good economically is when we have all those corporate slot buildings, businesses at the bottom of those buildings, we spend our money in them, but all of that money gets sucked up and goes to private equity. Whereas if we allow a system where we get smaller businesses in, the money stays in that community. That person, their profits are going to stay locally, and it's going to be used to recycle and enhance the community. If we have the small businesses, but the money stays locally and creates more jobs, whereas with the corporate slop of all that stuff, the money gets sucked up and they start cutting jobs, raising prices, and it's a big problem. So we need to introduce competition. We need to get more small businesses, have people follow their dreams, all this great stuff with that small business program. So it would be offering the big landlords of the 5/1s of saying, we have a program where if you open up some storefronts we'll have an accreditation process of saying what is an independent business, what isn't an independent business, or a franchise versus non-franchise. And then we introduce more small businesses, and the money stays locally, and it creates a more enriching environment. So economically, socially, and just symbolically, it makes us a better community, a better state, a more diverse place. Because the way it is now is some of the places in Massachusetts are identical to the same as everywhere else, where we want to be a cool, awesome state with diversity and excitement and all this cool stuff. So that would be the small business program.
Are you looking at that particularly in just the Braintree Quincy area?
I think that should be a statewide thing. It'd be fantastic across the board. And it would be an open program so that the city legislators would work with the developers and say, can you kind of carve out some spots for us? We have this great program where you guys can save money. We introduce businesses, and it makes a better environment.
Sure.
So,
and this is not going to cost taxpayers anything. It'll be a tax break on the landlords.
Tax break on landlords. So it would be less revenue coming in essentially, but the trade-off would be we have less tax revenue coming in, but at the same time, we have a diversity of an economy in our state, and that will actually produce more money. So
how will that produce more income or more taxes?
The small businesses would exist, and then they would be operating as a business. So then they would be creating jobs. They'd be generating businesses, generating taxes, and they would essentially have lower rent costs. So then that money wouldn't get sucked up going to a private equity firm in terms of rent. Their money would come in, support the local community in terms of jobs, services, all that, whether it's a gym or anything else, and it would help them out. So the return on investment by reducing that tax burden, and they'd be happy they're paying lower taxes, and for a minimal trade-off of they have the open space anyway. So it's pretty much, it's a win-win for everyone. The big businesses save tax money, and then the small businesses save on costs and are an enhancement of our communities. And then we have a awesome, diverse community. Like in Quincy Center right now, they're developing all the 5/1s. It'd be great if we can get more businesses in there. And the question is, how do we get more small businesses? This tax small business program would solve that, of creating an enriched environment of more small businesses. People will want to hang out there more, and then they'd spend more money. So with more businesses, more people, more money being circulated, and we'd have more of that money staying locally. So
what does Quincy and Braintree look like 2030 if you were to win this upcoming election?
In 2030, that's 4 years. That's about 2,000 days. Not too much would be changing. Hopefully we could get that small business program going, get more small businesses. I'd certainly work, as much as I have the big ideas, we still have to keep the machine running of like you said, the grant programs of having this, supporting the basic needs that we need. We have the big pool of state money. Let's get that to the city so we're not in the red. We're operating efficiently. Get rid of city bloated spending on things, and just do the best we can. So it's not necessarily the role of a senator. It comes from the term senatus, which means it's where we get like seniority. That's
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
it makes sense.
Yeah.
I just never thought of it that way.
Yeah. And the role of the senator is to be the wise old man who's looking at the big picture. The representative is supposed to represent the people of like, we want this. The senator is supposed to look at the big picture. So my goal is not, as much as I love Quincy Braintree, the district, and we have to serve them, they have about 10, 12 even more 15 state representatives representing the state. And I can't wait to work with them on how we can help our local communities. But I also want to focus on the big picture of helping the state, because when you help the big picture, it helps the smaller pictures. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like if we have the best systems on the state level, that helps the cities deal with what they have.
And how's that vision change for the Holbrook, Abington, Rockland, and Hanover? How's that changed for the towns opposed to the larger population cities? So 2030 vision.
In the towns, I think that some of those cities would like less state intervention. They just want state money.
Sure.
And I'd be glad to help them get as much money as they can and let their local officials do the best they can with that money. They elected the officials, so I would trust those officials. Even if some of them are hacks, I'd work with them as best as we could to work with them on the local level to improve their lives and their communities.
Sure.
That'd be the goal.
Lastly, I want to touch on the tram plan in Quincy.
Not just
What is
Quincy,
it?
that's the whole state.
The whole state.
Whole
Okay.
state. I on my website I have a detailed visualization of proposed routes, and the goal of that is to create a circular loop within Boston, going from South Boston through Roxbury into Longwood Medical Center, up then by Fenway area, going down, pedestrianizing Newberry Street, and then putting the one version of the tram going there, the other one going down Boylston, and then creating an absolute loop which would connect all of the red line, the orange line, the blue line, the silver line, every major MBTA rail going from the suburbs into the city. It connects all of those, and then the second part would be putting auxiliary tram connections connecting, let's say, Wonderland to Davis Square or something, and then creating one from, let's say, JFK or Andrew all the way to Ruggles. And what that does is it creates a corridor of economic development, and it helps transportation. So there are a whole series of things that it does. First, one problem that you may have, let's say if you're coming on the red line or another line, is that you have to go all the way into Park Street to get to the other cross of the city. It creates an inefficiency and a redundancy of where you have to go in to go back, and it adds about 10 minutes to people's days. If we could save 10 minutes by creating a tram route, which would allow them to better navigate the city in the inner parts, that creates efficiency in terms of transportation. It's a wonderful concept. Trams are used throughout Europe in all the major cities. It's embarrassing in Massachusetts that we don't have a better network. If you ever pull up a map of, let's say, Tokyo or Paris's public transportation networks, it's so elaborate. You can go from one part of the city to the other, and it's enormous, it's beautiful, it's intricate, but it works, it's efficient. What we have in Massachusetts is a series of disconnected routes where it allows you to go from the suburbs to the middle of the city, but once you're in the middle of the city, you can't navigate around the city. You have to rely on Ubers, walking, buses, which cost money, take time, and it's a true inefficiency. And the long-term bus strategy that we have now, it costs a lot of money in terms of maintenance, whereas if we had trams, it would expedite the transportation, and it would have a lower long-term cost. And the beauty of when we create the tram routes in the central circle and on the peripheral secondary connecting more of the suburb areas, it opens up areas for economic development and housing. Housing is one of the biggest issues. One thing we don't want to do is expand the suburbs, because suburbs are inherently inefficient and not cost effective. Any suburb in Massachusetts is essentially in the red without state funding. So if we want to save our suburbs and save our city and make it better, the tram routes will allow us to build a higher density of, let's say, 5/1s and maybe even more. And then when we build that, we're actually building a city instead of just building an isolated series of buildings that make it hard. When we don't have the transportation component, we increase traffic. Traffic is one of the biggest problems in Massachusetts. Anyone knows it.
Sure.
And that's debilitating, and it makes us less attractive for national investment as a state. Companies won't want to come to Massachusetts if it costs too much, housing is too much, and traffic costs too much. By building the trams, we increase transportation efficiency, we lower traffic, and we increase housing and make a better environment. All those people from around the world and the country, they want to live in nice places. By building the trams, we allow us the opportunity to build nice places, especially with the small business program. We build all the housing, and then we line the streets with big corporate stores mixed in with local businesses, and that creates a diverse and enriching environment of music venues, restaurants, everything, places we actually want to be. Similar to like New York City, like when you walk down the street in New York, you're like, what's this, what's this, what's this, and then you can live in New York your whole life and not see anything. What we want to do is create awesome public spaces from the street level, and that's one way to do it with the trams. And the issue of how it solves traffic is that there's only one way to reduce car traffic as your population increases, and that's to allow alternatives to a car. The way we're building right now, we're increasing car traffic. If we build a 500 unit building next to the highway, all those people need cars. Where are those cars going to go? The highway. That increases traffic, makes less desirable places to live. If we build along tram routes where people don't necessarily need cars, we reduce traffic, we improve housing, improve public spaces, and that makes our cities much more enticing for national businesses to come in, local businesses. So at every level, the tram routes will help us, and it's a fantastic strategy known as transit-oriented development, and it's a part of a wave thing called new urbanism, of making our places actually places we want to be instead of isolated buildings and suburbs that are far away. Suburbs are awesome. Like, I live in a suburb. Quincy's essentially a suburb. But if we can strategically build housing and transportation in the local city, like Boston and the greater Boston area, which is a city. Like, if we're going to be a city, let's be a city, and let's be an awesome city. This tram route would actually solve transportation, housing, and it would help people navigate inside the city. So the people living along the red line, the blue line, the orange line, they're more enticed not to drive into the city creating traffic. They'd be more enticed to take the MBTA into the city, which reduces traffic, and the ridership for the MBTA would go up, generating more revenue, so they become more self-sustaining, and they wouldn't be subsidized more heavily by the state. So we solve traffic, we solve housing, as we help local businesses, we help big businesses. It makes our state an absolute leader and a kick-ass. It's one of the building my proposed tram routes is one of the most exciting things we could possibly do. Like, if you were to ask me one thing we could do, all the social infrastructure programs are awesome. I want to do them. Free healthcare, community clinics, trade schools, free mass education, free elder care, low-cost childcare, all awesome institutional things I want to work on. But the concrete and metal of building those tram routes would revolutionize the cities, and we would become such a powerhouse in the country. People would say, I want to go to Massachusetts. And I have the artist residency program in the community venues. Whether you're an artist, a scientist, anything, come on in. And what's great is that injects, by getting the federal and state funding to build the tram routes, economic development, job creation. We'd create tens of thousands of jobs, help thousands of businesses. So the trams aren't just transportation. They're a catalyst for revolutionizing, improving society. And that's the most exciting part for me. So I would just love to build the trams, because we solve housing, we solve transportation, we help small businesses, and then we get more money into our state. We create jobs of construction jobs, operating jobs, and then all those jobs and that influx of money helps businesses, it helps gyms, it helps hair salons, because there's more money, and that's actual true trickle-down economics, not giving all the money to the poor, but giving money to the working class, and then that allows them to spend money locally, and then that enriches our economy, our communities. So the tram isn't just a train, it's just a catalyst for revolutionizing and improving society, to make Massachusetts and Boston literally the best place to live in the entire country, and that's my goal.
Alex, thank you.
Hell yeah, brother.
Pleasure.
No, thank you, man.
Thanks for coming by.
No, thank you for all this. You're absolutely fantastic at everything you do.
I appreciate it. You can tune in weekly to the Seth Rosczewski After Hours program to hear from local government officials. Last week we spoke with Rockland's Town Administrator Doug Lapp. We have many more episodes upcoming. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and share. And we'll be back for more content. Thank you very much. Bye, guys.